couple of years ago, I heard this mad rumour coming out of Aston Martin. They'd decided all of their cars should be the most powerful in their class. I thought, that's ridiculous. The new Vanquish would need to have 660 horsepower. The new DB12 would need over 670 horsepower. And to keep pace with what Ferrari are doing now, whatever replaced the DBS, well, that'd need like 835 horsepower. They've only gone and done it. It's the new Vanquish. Now, I am going to show you all of the tech, the engineering behind it very shortly, but I think first, let's just take a moment to absorb the looks, because for me, this is the first flagship Aston that finally moves away from that curse of looking like the standard car that's been to Mansory. This looks much more bespoke and way better for it. So we'll start at the back, work our way to the front. No longer any kind of ducting in here, shooting out. They've just given it this nice gurney top to the boot lid here, and a spoiler that works with the diffuser, so that's where your downforce comes from. Now, this is the only place on the whole car that you'll see Vanquish written, because, well, they're so confident that the styling is now different, and I think they're right that they don't have to tell you what kind of car it is. Probably because of stuff like this, really striking new design elements. They call this the Shield. Apparently it was also nicknamed the Surfboard when the designers were coming up with it. This huge full width panel, it's in carbon on this car, but you can have it body colour if you like. And you'll see actually, if I just find out where the boot opens, look at that, it comes up with the boot, really kind of accentuates the width and the stance of the car. And if we pop that back down, take a look at these. Again, you haven't seen these on a series production Aston before. These lights are much more like the 3D multi-element ones you get on the Valkyrie and the Valor. Really like those. Again, just gives the car its own look from behind it, as do these. Look at the size of these pipes. Massive quad exhaust, nicely kind of tucked into the edges of the diffuser there, and you can have a titanium sports exhaust to kind of uncork the best noise from the twin turbo V12, give it the help that it needs. Also saves 10.5 kilos, so probably worth ticking that box. Okay, now come with me down here. All the bodywork is carbon fibre on top of an aluminium skin, but again, because it's all bespoke, the designers can have some fun with it. So this rear haunch is stretched 10 mil wider than it was on the DBS, but then it tucks in here, really shrink wrapped over the hips. Kind of got some 177 vibes happening in this area, which is very cool. Just pop back to the wheels actually. They've tried to take a lot of weight out of the car in the whole bits that spin area. So lighter forged wheels and carbon ceramic brakes. They save 27 kilos over what steel brakes would weigh, and they do at last come as standard. Now here's an interesting thing, the door. Normally when a car company is trying to take one model and spin it off into another one, they save a few quid by sharing the doors. Porsche used to do it with the Boxster and the Cayman, nicking the door off the 911, and Aston Martin have done it too, but not anymore. So the door has more shape and more sculpture to it, and that makes room for this huge bow and arrow inspired vent here. And again, it's just about giving the car its own look and its own character. For the carbon fibre fetishist among you, this car's really going to tickle your pickle. You can have carbon fibre mirrors, whacking great carbon fibre skirt down the side, and you can have a carbon fibre roof, but you might not want to. Come back to that later actually, because one of the big changes for the Vanquish happens between here and here. This distance from the front axle to the A-pillar has been stretched by 80 millimeters, which in car design terms is an acre. That is massive. And it's actually nothing to do with handling or aerodynamics. It's just because the design department wanted a classic, long, elegant bonnet, so they pushed this forward. Now, come and have a look around the front. Have you spotted the one piece of the Vanquish which is carried over from another Aston Martin? There it is. The headlights. But I'd forgive you for not noticing, because the rest of the car is so different. They blend in very well, and well, Vanquish headlights are quite cool. Speaking of cool, cooling, look at all this. Massive open grille. This is 13% bigger than it was on the DBS, and all of it is functional. Nothing is blanked off, nothing is fake. Same with these air curtains here, cooling the brakes. There's no pretend, no cosplay about the Vanquish. I love that. And these vents on top of here are actually inspired by the cooling slashes that are in the side of the Aston Martin Formula One car. I know it's a bit kitsch, but we all like details like that, don't we? And just look how aggressive they are. I think we should have a look under here and see what's making all the heat. Okay, let's have a look at the business end. Yeah, that's a proper engine bay, isn't it? And I told you people who love carbon fibre would adore the Vanquish. You've got this matte carbon on the very lightweight bonnet, gloss carbon going over the engine, and even this chopped carbon down by the strut brace, because everything underneath the body has got so much stiffening. This thing's 75% stiffer in the body than the old DBS was. And it's a heck of a lot more powerful, isn't it? Because this guy has just, well, everything's stronger, everything's beefed up. Cylinder heads, the block itself, the valve train. Turbos, meanwhile, they're freer spinning, and there's some trick stuff going on with the boost as well to make it behave a bit more like a naturally aspirated engine. There's something on this called boost reserve, and basically the engine overboosts and then keeps a bit of boost in reserve for you. So if you're on part throttle, then you go for an overtake, you smash the throttle open, or if you're mid-drift, as we all are on our morning commutes, and you're feathering the throttle, you need that maximum response. The engine's always got a little bit more puff to give the turbos when you need it. So be interesting to see, won't it, who's got the better V12 philosophy? Ferrari with all the revs in the 12Cilindri, or the big brutish muscle of this monstrous Aston, which has got more power and more torque, 1,000 Newton meters, 737 foot-pounds, all going through the rear wheels. Numbers? Well, 0 to 60, 3.2 seconds, which always sounds like a really fast car to me because I'm a 90s kid and that's what the McLaren F1 did it in. Top speed is the highest of any production Aston Martin ever, 214 miles an hour. And actually, it doesn't just look very different on the outside, this. Come and have a look in here. I'll tell you what, the view in the mirror over that rear haunch is just stunning. So what have they done in here? Well, if you remember the DBS that got barrel rolled in Casino Royale, that basically had an identical interior to a DB9, and the latest DBS Superleggera was a DB11 dashboard inside, and well, that was never our favourite, was it? So they've done something quite clever in here, which is take all the bits from recent Aston Martins that have been massively improved and then just sort of remixed it. So you've got the new digital screen up here for the dials, which works really well. It's way better than the one that used to be in the old DBS. You can't count the pixels from here now. The new touchscreen with Aston Martin's own interface, which works really well. But they've taken the lovely tactile centerpiece here with all the proper knurled buttons and switches, because Aston Martin gets that putting everything in a touchscreen is soulless and foolish, and they've flattened it. You know, it's kind of raked in the other cars, and here they've just laid that down. I was thinking, I wonder if that's going to make it feel like I'm sat too high, like I'm sat on the car, but no, the driving position feels spot on. You feel low in the car, although I did just measure it, and it's 5 paces from here in the driver's seat to the tip of that massive bonnet. So yeah, that's going to take some getting used to when you're parking it. What else? Well, it's all about little detail touches. You might have spotted the little exposed screw heads over there, just to kind of make it feel a bit more technical, maybe a little bit race car inside. You've got this new kind of zigzag seat cushion pattern, which you can have a play with, do loads of bespoke bits and bobs, and as well as all the carbon fibre on here that you'll have seen, check out that in the back, this massive carbon fibre strut brace going across the rear bulkhead, bringing that stiffness into the chassis that we were talking about earlier, and making sure that, again, to differentiate this from other Aston Martins like the DB12, this is a strict 2-seater and always will be. But yeah, that looks fantastic in the back there. Oh, and lastly, I said we'd come back to the glass roof, because there's kind of an interesting engineering realities meets design clash going on here. So the original idea was to have this in an adjustable tint. You know, you can change the darkness depending on the weather, except that no glass supplier was able to answer Aston Martin's request for a piece of glass that was tintable, that's this large and this curved. So that gave the designers a dilemma. Do they ruin their beautiful curvaceous roofline and straighten it all out so they can have the adjustable tint, or do they simply darken it down and keep their lines? And yeah, beauty won. They've just tinted this so heavily that it only lets 6% of light in. Now I have to say it is still very hot in here, as you can probably see from my sweaty brow, but it is 36 degrees and I haven't got the air conditioning on. I think I'd prefer mine with a carbon fibre roof, but I mean, you'll probably get away with this in a British summer. Overall, it's a clever job in here though, because yes, it feels more different, more expensive than the old V12 Aston flagships did inside. And I think that for people who might find the Ferrari 12Cilindri's totally tech-obsessed, touchscreen everything approach baffling, and I really wouldn't blame you, then this, with buttons and switches and knobs and tactility, is actually very, very pleasing balance.
Besides what you can see and touch on the Vanquish, a lot's gone on under the skin to give this car a hope of challenging the very best hyper GTs on earth, V12 Ferraris in other words. At the back there's an E-diff, which Aston says goes from fully open to locked in 135 milliseconds. The car doesn't have rear steer like its closest rivals, but Aston says the way the diff works in low and medium speed corners to tighten the line gives a similar effect whilst also aiding high speed stability. It's also a lighter solution, though it will be interesting to see how much of a beating this E-diff will take before overheating, as some are prone to. There's strengthening all over the car's structure, under the bonnet, under the floor and inside as you've seen, to help the new Bilstein DTX dampers with 3 modes do their best work. What I like is that Aston Martin says the car's been tuned to be a great all-rounder in the default GT mode, so it gives its best as a road car. You can seek out more stiffness and support in the 2 sportier ride settings if you need to, but the engineers have apparently focused on getting the GT setting just so, because track performance wasn't the priority for this car. The Vanquish weighs 1774 kilograms dry with all of the lightweight carbon fibre options, so probably knocking on the door of 1.9 tonnes ready to roll. That's considerably less than the all-wheel drive plug-in hybrid Bentley Continental GT, but well in excess of Ferrari's equally meaningless claim of 1,560 kilos for a dry 12-Cilindri with all of the lightest options. Fewer than 1,000 Vanquishes will be built each year, with orders being offered first to loyal Aston customers. And yes, there will be a Volante soon to take advantage of that stiffer chassis and those stunning proportions. The price? Well, the coupe will start north of 300 grand, and that's before you get stuck into the dizzying array of Q division personalisation.
So, which are you going to have then? The new best of British Vanquish in its suave, bespoke, tailor-made suit, or its sworn Italian enemy, the Ferrari 12Cilindri? I'll tell you what, even if you're not into guns, gadgets, or girls, this has definitely got to be worth auditioning for Bond, hasn't it?